Welcome to Prompt India podcast. I am Saran.
And I am Karthik. Join us in decoding how AI is reshaping India. Today, we are focusing on the core tension between speed and trust in the creative economy.
Before we talk about Gen AI and how it is reshaping the industry, we have to acknowledge the scale of change, Karthik. What do you think is the biggest advantage of bringing Gen AI to businesses right now?
I think it's all about speed and efficiency. It's a massive multiplier. We are seeing employees doing the work of summarizing, drafting, coding, everything in a fraction of time. It makes every role, I think, much more productive.
I agree with you. And I think one of the core areas seeing a massive impact is marketing and content creation. Gen AI has fundamentally changed the game and put powerful and creative tools into the hands of smaller businesses who previously couldn't even afford dedicated design teams or writing teams. But with Gen AI, everybody is sort of becoming equal.
Yeah, exactly. And it allows for like hyper personalization, right? We can now create unique messages and marketing assets for millions of customers just instantly. And the opportunity to speak directly and relevantly to every single person has never been greater.
I completely agree with you. The opportunity is massive. But it's that very power that introduced the policy questions which we need to ask. What happens when the speed and automation start replacing the human skills? Think about the changes that it brings to the job scenario and job market in India. But to answer some of these questions, we can bring in our guest today. Our guest today is Gowri Kishore, who's a leading content strategist, writer, and consultant with over 14 years of experience. She's renowned for her work at Urban Ladder and Big Basket, and now is an independent consultant where she advises major brands on defining their brand voice and communication playbook. I think Gauri is perfectly positioned to discuss the core tensions of our episode today.
Welcome, Gauri. Thank you for joining us.
Karthik Saran, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely a pleasure, Gauri. So, Gauri, let's start with the craft. You spent years writing those famous newsletters for Urban Ladder, and they honestly felt like a warm hug from a real friend. I'm sure it took you a long time to get that tone right. Today, a junior marketer can use LLM to write those 20 versions of that emails in a couple of seconds. When you see the speed, do you feel that your craft is dying or is it just changing?
Wow, you've gone right to it, Saran. So I would say the craft is definitely changing. But to me, like with any change means that some old habits or some old norms will die while others are born. So I would say the craft is changing in all ways. And by that, I mean, in terms of the writer's process, the expectations from the writer, and in terms of the impact, both on the writer and whoever is reading it. So if I think about the writer's process, many writers we just open Word or Google Docs and that blank page is what we face alone or we used to. But now no writer I think really approaches a blank page alone. So everybody opens Word or Google Doc and immediately there is a new tab for ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot. So the way we sit down to write itself has changed. What we look at has changed, how we think has changed. When I think about expectations from the writer, like you said, almost anybody within a few seconds can get 20 versions of anything. So getting that good enough draft is now not a thing at all. So, what a writer with like 2, 3 years of experience might be able to provide, AI will give you in a few seconds. So, you don't need any talent or training. Anyone can do it. In fact, a lot of organizations now encourage writers to use AI, right? So, the expectation from the writer has changed. KRAs have changed. So, now all content marketing, creative roles, they require some level of AI fluency. So, the question is okay, now that you have AI as a tool, can you do more? Can you do better? Can you be faster? Expectations have completely changed from the writer. And when I think about impact, I think AI has impacted, the craft of the writer and also the experience of the reader. So, like, I'm speaking from the point of view of writers who have been writing long before November 2022 when ChatGPT kind of was born. So, I've been doing this for like 14 years plus professionally and like since I was a teenager. And when I discover that what took me years to do, AI can do in, let's say, forget a few minutes, maybe, I'm sitting and perfecting it. Maybe it can create a copy of it in an hour or so. I actually went through a grieving process, all 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression. And I would say now I'm at acceptance. And perhaps from acceptance, I'm moving towards curiosity, which is I'm exploring AI's possibilities. But I'm also moving towards clarity, which is, hey, what can AI not do? And B, what do I not want to give to AI? So I'm in that stage of the process now. And I think a lot of writers are. I'd hosted a grief circle for writers, for a couple of months ago, because I saw a lot of writers having this sort of existential crisis of sorts, asking, like, okay, so what does it mean to be a writer anymore if anybody can do it? So about 8 or 9 of us had joined, and people shared. And this was, we went through a, kind of a grieving process. So I'm, like I said, at this stage. But there is also parallelly an impact on readers, right? We are always like, it is the age of AI slop, where everybody can write, everybody is writing with AI. And now there is a lot of, so LinkedIn is now AI written posts with AI written comments. And then a group of people, who are shit posting about this. That's basically LinkedIn, right? So I would say, so there is also an impact on the reader, which I think at the moment is utter boredom. And I think no writing right now is making readers feel anything, or very little is. So yeah, that's a long answer to your question.
I think this is great because it touches a lot of points that we did want to discuss. Coming back to the grieving session that you were saying, I wonder if you are actually able to figure out what is it exactly that the writers contribute. Because I guess one of our questions that come to our mind is that our clients coming to you and saying, okay, why should I pay a team of 3 writers when I can just buy a AI subscription and get it done like that? Like, how do you answer the client in such a case?
Yeah. So the truth is, Karthik, the clients who are already happy with whatever output they are getting from AI are not even coming to us. So one common theme that came up is there are a lot of writers, especially freelancers, who are facing a slowdown in the kind of like the leads that they get for work, right? Because there is at least there is this is that stage of optimism, right, where a lot of marketers, small teams are just working with their existing writers and getting them to use AI. So the people who are happy with AI output are not really approaching an agency or any kind of freelancer. But the ones that do come to us, the question that we usually get is, I want to write a white paper about cross border payments. Here is a draft that Claude gave me, and it's pretty shitty. Or this is what is wrong with it. You fix it. Right? That is the kind of problem statement I get very often. So they already know I can churn out a 7 out of 10 draft. I am hiring you to take it to a 9 or 10. So that's the sort of question that we get very often. So again, it comes to that expectation from a freelancer. So as a writer, I think there is a lot more pressure, uh, on us to perform. What was acceptable, let's say, a year ago, is no longer acceptable. Because that now has become the norm.
That's a very interesting point that you make, Gauri, that, they come to you with the first draft and then the expectation is to make that better. But like you said, a lot of clients don't even come to you now anymore. And they're using Claude or GPT or Gemini for writing this. So don't you think that all of the content written by AI at some point keeps sounding the same? And, you touched on the AI slop. Do you think that, we're losing the creativity? And what happens to the junior writers who used to learn by doing now? They'll also start by just, using GPT for getting the drafts and then probably improving it, or some of them might not even do that.
Yeah, yeah. On the second part, I have very strong opinions. So I'll
Love
answer
to
the
hear them.
first part. So are we losing creativity, right? So see, I think every writer brings something unique to the table, which is based on their ideas, personal quirks, values, experience, the training that they got, and that is what I call the writer's voice, and that is a constantly evolving creature. So even if I'm not writing for myself on my Substack, but I'm writing on behalf of a brand and using the brand's voice, my uniqueness as a writer will definitely come out. So if there were 3 writers in any brand team, we all have the brand guidelines, but our ideas, the way our brain works, and our output, there is still a lot of room to play for writers, a lot of nuance to discover and shape. So if I were to take examples, so see, Fevicol does humor. Swiggy does humor, Five Star does humor, Zomato does humor, right? But even as I name all of these brands, you already know that this humor is on a spectrum. And each of these brands has a unique spot, right? So they are all doing humor, but their brand of humor is very unique. And that the best brands have arrived at it over many years with a lot of experimentation and hits and misses, and in all of this there are human brains, right? The creative brains who are working on it at each stage. Now today with AI, the brand voice is defined. You have a deck, you can upload that deck into AI and say, okay, now this is the brand voice, write copy, and it'll give you 20 options in a few seconds. But as a writer, a seasoned writer, a good writer, a creative person should then be able to take this output. And my question would be, are you able to recognize which of these 20 things, where do you find a spark of a good idea? Where are you able to recognize a beautifully formed sentence? Are you able to take what AI gives you and turn it into something really brilliant and unique for your brand? And I think this is where writers of the old school, because we've been trained to do this the hard way, this is where we probably have an edge over a junior writer. And by junior, I don't even know what that means anymore. I would probably say a writer who became a writer in the age of AI. So anybody who's entered this profession in 2023 or 24, they already have these tools, right? So I think the way their brain works itself is very different. So very often, so sometimes I have interns. So I currently, for the last 7.5 years, I've had my own consulting practice. So every now and then I have interns working with me, or like other freelancers engaging with me on projects. So one thing that I urge young writers to do whenever I get a chance to mentor them, I usually tell them, please don't start with AI. Close with AI. And by that, I mean, whatever the brief, please start with your thoughts, your ideas. They can be basic, they can be stupid, or whatever, but you start with them. So, for instance, when it comes to B2B writing, there is a lot of synthesis and analysis required. You might be working with a lot of information, right? So, here, I always urge them, put down your own thoughts, make the outline yourself, and once you have your point of view, your thinking is very clear, then take it to AI and then ask AI to punch holes in it, probe a little more, ask questions. So, my advice is try and build a muscle to recognize what is relevant, in what everything that AI is giving you or telling you. You should be able to recognize what is actually relevant to you, and then use it in your craft. So I think that's a very important muscle to build for young writers. And the other thing I think I want everybody to kind of remember, or I keep saying, is please don't give your draft to AI and say, "Do you like this?" No, because at all times, please have the awareness that AI is not human, right? It is essentially a text predictor. It is designed to be supportive, and if you ask that question, "Do you like this draft?" It'll say, "Of course, yes." It's been designed to offer validation, right? And it'll give you some standard feedback in a sandwich format because it has to. Here is where you have to really use it effectively. So please remember, AI is not the reader. It feels absolutely nothing, and it can only, it can just trying to predict feelings based on whatever data it has. So I think past data is never a predictor of future behavior, right? So that 10 to 20% gap that offers writers a lot of potential as humans to be creative and try new things. So while AI is building on whatever knowledge humans have already put into it, we are those humans, and I think we, like anything new, I think has to come from us. So yeah, that would be my advice to young writers.
So, Gauri, I have a follow up question on that because most of the advice I have heard is that you start with AI, but then you bring your own thoughts into it. But what I'm hearing you say is that you start with your own thoughts, create your first draft, and then, ask AI to punch holes in it, which is essentially opposite of what people typically do, because the first thing they do is go to AI and ask and then get a first draft and then look at where it is going. But if we do the other way around, like you mentioned, and I've seen this happening, is that my first draft might be my personal thoughts, but when I get the rewritten form back from AI, it doesn't sound like me. It sounds like someone else completely. So how do you really think about that?
Okay, so I need to clarify that I would never get AI to rewrite anything that I have said.
Okay.
So I would recommend you do that if you're not a writer. So let's say you're the founder of a brand, right? Or you are a marketer, or you're a salesperson. And your job, your primary role or function is not really writing. It is just one of the things you have to do in order to accomplish your work goal successfully. Then, by all means, please use AI. This is like a non designer using Canva for design, right? You should absolutely use it because we are not trained designers, we are not illustrators. Let's make our lives easier. But if this is advice specifically for writers, I think writers should hold their craft very sacred. Also, because unlike a lot of other professions, creative professions people end up in because they, it might be that at the age of 10 or 12 they would have enjoyed writing, so there's always this passion mixed up with it. People don't just like you just become an engineer, you don't just become a writer. At least that's what I have felt. So now that you have chosen this passion mixed path in life, please protect it at all costs. So if you are a writer, I would not recommend at all that you give your writing to AI and ask it to rewrite, which is why my push is to say, make your thinking very clear, give it to AI and ask its opinion, like tell me what is not working. You tell it who's going to read it, right? And say, for this reader, will this language work? Is the flow making sense? Am I making my arguments clearly? Or if it is an ad, then it is about what is your takeaway? What do you think about the brand? What would you imagine that you would hear? What kind of visual are you imagining with it? So use it in that way, maybe as a brainstorming partner, as an editor. Treat it as another human on your team, right? But not, remember, it's not a human, but brainstorm with it. Don't tell it like, rewrite this thing for me. Where I might use it to, for writing support is, so sometimes as a freelancer, we are pitching to clients, right? And if we go with one idea, clients don't like it. In general, everybody likes to feel they have a lot of choice. So sometimes I go with two ideas that I really like, and I might put that into AI and say, look, this is the client, this is the sort of thing, these are two of my ideas, give me two more. So just to pad that up, so I may take four to the client. I would do that pitch in such a way that they may end up picking only one of mine, but the client will feel happy because they see that, okay, you have four. So that is probably where I might, say, okay, use AI to write something. But I would personally not encourage anybody, to any writer, to get AI to rewrite what they have said, because what you said is exactly what is going to happen. Everybody is going to sound the same, and then you as a writer will lose your voice.
So, a follow up on this, like if you have, let's say, tight deadlines and you really need to get something done, do you see people taking these shortcuts? And if they do, like how easy is it to identify them?
So initially, right, I would say in the first half of 2023, everybody was sort of taking this shortcut, okay, because everybody was playing with AI, everybody. And then there were all these, if you look at a lot of social media posts around that time, you will see comparisons. Who writes better? Chat GPT versus Claude versus Gemini. People were playing with prompts. In fact, a lot of writers were giving out like resources to how to prompt AI so that it gives you more human like output. So that was happening, I would say, in like 23. I would say even perhaps half of 24. But in the past year or so, there, has this, as I think with the AI slop, right? The sameness. See, now AI sounds perfect. But the point of writing is very often not to sound perfect. It is about that uniqueness that is there in the brand, maybe some imperfections. That is what actually make that voice stand out. So now with everybody sounding the same, there is a lot of posts come out there saying how to identify AI written stuff. In fact, there is an entire Wikipedia article that is directed at watch out for these AI writing patterns, and this they compile, and it's a very comprehensive, very beautiful page which gives with specific examples the mistakes or patterns, common tropes that AI does. So you, in fact, I have forwarded it to a lot of writers to say, if at all you're using AI, at least like, kind of go through this so that you know how to edit that writing. So now this has become common knowledge. So in fact, I think we are in a wave right now where people are still using AI to write it, and then they are doing what you mentioned earlier, Sanan, which is they are sort of rewriting it. Take the
Yeah.
first draft from AI and then they are trying to rewrite it. But I think a lot of the danger, right, is that a lot of what AI says sounds like it is perfect. It sounds good. It sounds like it is making sense. So at some point, I think we as writers, we also stop thinking at a certain point, right? We don't push back as much. You're like, this sounds good. So I think somewhere slowly our bar is also lowering. So now I think there is a new wave of substack writing that is coming up, which is talking about how AI written articles. Like they're basically dissecting the most popular essays on Substack and trying to figure out where all AI has been used. And apparently, it seems everywhere. Everybody is using AI. So I think we are still in those stages of figuring out how to use this tool, and a bunch of people, as always, are trying to figure out how, to use it to their advantage, or saying, "Please don't use it at all."
Yeah. So, staying kind of in the same topic, we
Hmm.
can talk about essentially trust that comes from
Yeah,
AI, right?
yeah.
So, you
Mm.
worked at Big Basket during the pandemic, and that was a very high stakes time. People had to trust Big Basket to get their food, right? But now, what you commonly see is brands use AI chatbots to handle critical customer complaints. And I mean, the bot can mess up quite often. So, how fast does the trust break? And is this efficiency worth the risk?
And just to add to Karthik's point,
Mhm.
there's not even an option to talk to humans in
Yeah,
certain brands, right? So
yeah,
there's a bot, and they've
yeah.
not even designed it well that it's a loop that you get stuck in, and you don't know where to go now and how to contact the brand.
Right. Yeah. So, in fact, an example comes to me which was recently circulating. So, a quick commerce firm. So, a customer had a very botched delivery, right? And they sent a very sarcastic message to WhatsApp. And that WhatsApp channel, now brands use multiple WhatsApp numbers. Some are for promotional purposes, some are to collect feedback. So, to one of these numbers, because as far as the customer is concerned, it is the brand name on WhatsApp. So, they have sent a very sarcastic message which says something like, this happened. Thanks for ruining my evening. And I'm going to switch to whatever your competitor. Now, that AI, and it had some sort of sentiment recognition algorithm set up. So, it's noticed the thanks. So it sent out an automatic response which says, "You're most welcome." So the customer, it sounded to the customer like, I'm going to go to X, to your competitor, and the brand says you're most welcome, right? So the customer was so mad that they wrote a very angry post about how the brand doesn't value customers, and so trust breaks extremely quickly, and they had to do a lot of firefighting to sort of calm down. And it was a valuable customer, like so trust breaks very very quickly, and because we are still in the very early days of AI, we we have not been able to put in place all the guardrails necessary. We are not able to predict what all. So some level of sentiment analysis has been programmed into this bot, right? But what all could But it's not a human. So we are still figuring out as brands what are the possibilities, what are the guardrails, and in fact, the thing that you said, Saran, about not even having the option to talk to a human. This is a personal experience that I am sharing with a small clothing brand. So I had placed an order and it had been over 10 days and I hadn't gotten any order updates. So everywhere the brand said, talk to us on WhatsApp. So I messaged that WhatsApp number and I asked for an order update. And the responses sounded exactly like AI. Like it was very stilted, right? Welcome to this brand name. I am Ria. I hear you, Gowri. I know this delay is frustrating. So, and at some point, I am asking a question and I keep getting these sort of templatized answers. The script was so AI coded, I actually typed back saying, "Are you a bot?" And the response I got was, "I am Ria from this brand, female support specialist. I am on your shipment. Update within 24 hours." And again, that language was so stilted. I again asked, I said, "Hey, I really want to know, are you a bot?" Again, I got a scripted reply saying, "I am a real person." But honestly, it didn't sound human. And to this day, I don't know whether it is a bot pretending to be human or a human who has used AI to script the responses. And now the human sounds like a bot. So I feel like this is a very dystopian kind of situation that, we are really in. So it's a very, very real problem. So I think as a customer, I don't think customers care whether it is a human or an AI as long as their problem gets solved, which is why something that Amazon does, I need to check if they currently do, but until very recently on the Amazon app, you basically talk to a bot, right? But then at any point you can request a call back. There is always the option upfront to talk to a human. So at Big Basket, for example, hey, here is a toll free number. If you have a problem, just call us. Because sometimes this whole, thing of WhatsApp and nobody being able to tell the difference and some being handled by AI and when does it get escalated, we are still kind of figuring it out. So I think as a customer, I only care about my problem getting solved. But at all times, I think customers would prefer to have an option to speak to a human.
Yeah, and I think I agree with your point, and this is one of the best practice as well, that you should always provide the option to talk to a human, because people will want to talk to a human at certain points because bot is not working and the sentiment is very negative, or you're not able to solve within 3 attempts, escalate to a human. And it's also, to your point, it's also very important that we upright say that this is a bot or this is a human you're talking to. I think that transparency goes a long way in building trust. However, there's a flip side to that I have seen, that as soon as the customers know that this they're talking to a bot, they will say human, 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 and then you want a human as
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
So the brands are trying to balance that as well. But I absolutely agree that we need to we need a human in the loop.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, perhaps at what point do you offer the option of, introducing a human? Maybe not right from the beginning, right? Perhaps because with Amazon, I've seen that the bot is actually quite helpful. In fact, there is also this, I don't know if it's a millennial Gen Z kind of problem, but a lot of us actually prefer just chatting. Nobody wants to pick up a phone and call as well, right? Now, I don't know with AI, is that behavior also going to change in a year or two? I'm not sure, but at the moment, if the bot works well, I've done this kind of dipstick among my like people I know. Most people just text, they don't want to call anyone. So even with a human in the loop, if there is this assurance that my problem will get solved, I think people are okay.
Yeah, but nowadays we do get calls from AI bots
Yep.
also.
Yes.
So
Yep.
Yes, that's true. That's
That's
true as
that's
well.
a
Yeah.
completely different.
Yeah. In
uh
fact, I feel a particular extra anger if it is an AI bot calling me. If it's I feel like, hey, if you're going to bother me and you're wasting my time, you should waste some of your time as well. You can't automate this, So there is,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, a bot selling you a credit card or a
Yeah.
property. Yeah, that's. I think this was very, very good discussion. Moving on from here, we were talking about trust and dependency. But what about the verification itself? So if you ask AI for a catchy slogan like you were mentioning, right, it'll give you a great one. You'd upload your brand persona and it'll give you the catchy slogan and all of the marketing material that you need to go with it. But how do you verify that it just didn't steal the idea? Because after all, it is, trained on data and it'll pick things from data. So how do you know that it didn't steal that idea or from a competitor or a small blogger? In old days you knew that it was your team who wrote it or you wrote it, but now it could be accidental plagiarism. So how do you deal with that?
Actually, I mean, a lot of humans have plagiarized too and continue to do that, right? So I don't know if so plagiarism has always been a problem. However, with AI, the scale at which or the rate at which it happens, is has definitely, this is a very common issue. So a lot of editors at like the client end, so whoever is sort of the maker checker thing, right? The person who is approving something often pushes back and saying like, where is the inspiration? Where did this come from? So their responsibility or their what they have to do to make sure that has increased. So it's kind of on them to figure out that, like, do I know really where this idea came from? In fact, there is this a lovely book called Steal Like an Artist, right? So, I mean, anybody who's starting out in any field, whether you're a writer or a designer or anything, you're encouraged to steal. So, look for inspiration, try and copy it. But at some point, as you hone your craft, you make it your own. So, which is why earlier I was very impassionately kind of saying, like, please don't take whatever AI gives you exactly as is because of this exact problem that it is building on whatever it's found. So one of the ways is to ask, hey, show me the sources, right? So if you're giving me these ideas, and like let's say I've asked AI to generate 10 captions, I might then say, okay, these captions sound good, but are there other brand captions that sound similar to this, right? Or you try and sort of second guess. But I would rather encourage any writers on my team to spend their effort on taking whatever AI gives you and making it your own. Like, you make sure it is not. The only way you'll know that is if you work on it yourself. Instead of trying to do a QC with AI. It's like asking AI, please, like, check and tell me if this is AI written, right? And it's AI checking AI's work. So I'd rather that we spend our energy or time and mind space on truly making something ours. So yes, everybody is nervous about accidental and sometimes plagiarism that happens because people don't care enough. So this is a very real problem.
I like your idea of LLM as a judge for LLM's work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Corey. And I guess we can now move to a topic which can get serious. So
Mm,
let's shift to the policy vacuum, right? So the
mm.
government has recently amended the IT rules to crack down on deepfakes and told platforms to delete them immediately. But in marketing, the line is a bit blurry. If you remember the Cadbury ad where they used AI to recreate Shah Rukh Khan's voice for local businesses, that was a cool campaign, but technically that is synthetic media, the exact same technology behind the illegal deepfakes, right? So, as a strategist, are you worried that well meaning marketing campaigns might accidentally break these new laws? And where do you kind of draw the line between a cool tech ad and illegal misinformation?
So actually, ever since the first round of, even before AI video creation got so good, like right now it's getting better and better with every day. I find something so amazing that people are doing. So even like a couple of years ago, at that time I was consulting for a children's brand where there was a celebrity Bollywood actor who was one of the investors in the brand. And the actors team actually approached us to say they had a way in which the actor need not participate or like come for a shoot. We could actually create, like, so they would give us a certain number of like seconds of their like voice samples and face samples and all of that. And there was an intermediary, an AI company that would then create a bunch of videos. So then we could, as a brand, send out, like, let's say, a personalized happy birthday message to children from the actor, that sort of thing. So the interesting part here is that it came from the actor, because they are also and the charges or the fee that they were charging for something like this was way lesser than what they might have charged if we had actually done a shoot with them, right? So what I'm also trying to say is this awareness, of what is possible with AI has been around for a while, and now a lot of celebrities, influencers, their teams are working double hard to make sure they keep control of this. So recently, I read that a couple of spiritual advisors, Sri Ravi Shankar and Sadhguru, they approached the Delhi High Court requesting personality rights protection against the use of their name, image, voice, all of that. And they said without our direct request or consent, it cannot be used. And I think the court is actually considering it because there are lots of deep fakes going around with their spiritual leaders. So even you think that I mean, of course, a lot of spiritual leaders also are part of now well established organizations, but even their legal teams are now very cognizant of these things. So I think the chances of something happening accidentally are reducing because there is a lot of awareness at an organizational, at a brand level. The legal teams are working, and if at all it happens, I think it would be because somebody thinks they can get away with it. I think the chances of it accidentally happening are becoming less and less. In fact, from everything I see, awareness is only increasing, and legal teams have become very, very particular about how they use it. And like I said, from the celebrities or these influencers' point of view, they are trying to take control of this. So if it is part of the services or like solutions they offer, then it becomes legit, right? And then yeah.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that essentially there's also a new market sort of opening up where this can be used in ways which are very, very innovative. But obviously there are certain legal frameworks and legal rights that needs to be thought about, and some more regulations on how it works and how what is deepfake and how it is used and how the technology is used needs to
Correct.
be
And
thought
I
through.
think action will be like if any brand sort of takes advantage of an influencer, I think the influencer teams are now well aware of it. Now, if they take advantage of, let's say, the average customer, right? Let's say my likeness is taken by a brand and they put out a video saying, okay, this person endorses this dog food. And how will I go to court? What protection do I have against this? So I think, like you said, there is a lot of individual consumer protection. This whole personality rights protection thing is happening for influencers at that level. But what about for the average customer whose data is out there, whose information is out there? A lot more, I think, needs to be done.
Yeah, I think Denmark is the country that has tried to copyright like faces of
Oh,
everybody. Like everybody can have the copyright to their own identity or face rather.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know how India will proceed with something like that or not, whether India
Mm,
would do, but that was an interesting approach.
very interesting.
Yeah, and also, I mean, with the fact that people are just uploading their images, right? When Ghibli became popular, people were uploading family pictures, friends, all of that, and creating
Correct.
all of these things. Now we have given all of that data to AI, and they might reproduce some person that looks very similar to you.
Give it. Okay, moving on. And again, building on essentially what we were talking about on transparency and labeling. The advertising standards body does say that your ads must be honest. And as a customer, do you feel cheated if you read a lovely story but later find that a bot wrote it?
So I'm thinking about how recently the law came in that said like influencers, if they're doing any sponsored content, right, with brands, they have to say this is an ad, right, on social media. Until very recently, there was no mandate. And then because the creator economy kind of opened up and kind of exploded in a way, now that mandate has come in. So I think it is a good consumer protection practice, to mandate that this label, not that there is any harm, but I think it is better in the interest of consumers to just say this is written by AI. Now, if the question is, will people care? Do people care? Um, I don't think so. I genuinely feel like this is going to go the way of all the statutory warnings about smoking and mutual funds, right? After a point, it'll become white noise, it'll cease to matter. Um, so I think we should still do it because it is the right thing to do. But I also think the law should not stop with labeling though, because AI is going to evolve, right? What we can do with AI, so the chances of misuse, abuse, any kind of unintended consequences, everything is going to evolve. So marking it as created with AI is the first step. But then as the output also changes, I think the law also has to kind of keep up, with protecting people's interests. So at the moment, I don't know what all is possible. So I would say this is great, but I don't think consumers care very, very brutally. I don't think people care.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, if it's a story that touches you, then it touches you. Doesn't matter who's written it, human or a
Yeah,
bot.
yeah. Most people who say I don't like this are saying it on a matter of principle. Okay. So, right, the people who, for a lot of them, there is still a lot of curiosity and excitement. Oh my God, this is so cool. I keep seeing these on Instagram where actors have been de aged, right? So, you want to see Amitabh Bachchan as he was, at the age of 20, but in current Gen Z fashion. So, people think it's very cool. They don't see the only people objecting are people who are in the space, perhaps like the three of us who are talking, right? We may have some ethical, like, oh, I don't like this because this is fake, or, an artist or a writer. But the average person who's outside of his, to them, it's just a good story. It's just good fun.
Cool. One last policy question from a equity perspective on who gets left behind, right? So AI marketing is getting very smart at targeting people who have money, who have smartphones. Does this mean brands will stop trying to reach the next billion users, the non-English speakers, or the rural users, because the AI models, at least at the moment, aren't trained well enough to talk to them yet? Are we creating a marketing world that only speaks to the top 1%, or like is the marketing world also figuring out ways to reach out?
Karthik, I actually fear the opposite. I feel that my fear is really that AI is going to be misused to target the next billion users who are probably not yet as savvy about dark patterns and the
Okay.
possibility of misuse. So I feel because all this discourse that you see about the problem with AI, spotting whether this is AI, even this whole, hey, this is fake, right? Let's say a politically or in any kind of like hate speech, all of this, I find myself in WhatsApp groups trying to educate people who are not as savvy, saying, hey, this is fake, right? My fear is that the people, the 99% who don't know this, are actually in danger. And that I fear that they are going to be targeted not only by marketers and others trying to sell things to them, but even by like bad actors. So I feel they are the ones, any policy, anything that we think about, they are the ones that need both education and protection.
Gauri, so if you had to give one simple rule for companies using AI today to keep things honest with their customers, what would that rule be?
At the moment, um, for any brand looking at AI, see, to me, AI is a tool. Yes, it is more powerful than every other tool that we have had so far. And it is also riskier than every other tool that we have had so far. So, whatever a brand is using it for, marketing, design, process improvement, customer support, whatever, I would say look at it through the lens of customer respect. Okay. And for me, that means respecting the customer's intelligence, their autonomy, their preferences, and their trust, which you as a brand have worked very, very hard to earn. So, whenever you're like a brand is looking at AI and saying, can I use AI here? I think that lens of, am I respecting the customer truly in all ways in how I choose to implement this AI? That would be the question that I ask. And if I'm respecting the customer, then okay, according to my values. And like I said, respect just doesn't mean the trust. It also means all aspects of what makes a customer and equal to the brand and important to the brand. So if the AI use respects these truly and you're not just paying lip service, then I think you should be doing okay. um, but also it's a very evolving space, so I am very wary of saying, which is why I kept my answer at a very values or principle level, right? Because I think values are very important. They become extremely important in guiding everything, right? The intent with which we do something and the values that we use to guide what we do, I think that will eventually, I think those are huge and very often undervalued parts of brand building. So everything else to me is just like a use case or how you do it. That's
Means
less
to an
important.
end.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely agreed.
Okay, Gauri. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your insights with us today. There were lots of fascinating discussions. If you have any last words that you'd want to provide.
Thank you so much for having me. These were like really interesting questions. You made me think quite a bit. I've had opinions on some of these things, but to be asked these pointed questions, I think I also spent some time really reflecting on what do I believe, where do I stand. So thank you very much for having me. And yeah, like this has been lovely.
Thank you,
Pleasure
Gauri.
having you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pleasure having you, Gauri.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Prompt India. We hope you found this conversation as thought provoking as we did.
Thank you.
Super fun.
Thank you for tuning into Prompt India.
We will be back soon with another episode. Until then, take care.